Well, a big thank you for the invite. It is a little bit like, as Margaret was saying, it's a little bit like home territory. Although I'm based in Leeds, you might detect a slight Liverpool twang, as I am originally from Liverpool. But I spent all my working life in lovely Bradford, which I must say I uh, grew to love. Um, and I think this is definitely a topic that's close to my heart. I think using meditation at the business end of your life, I think we titled it "In the Flow on the Go," using meditation at the business end of your life. And um, I smiled when I saw the beautiful picture of the yogi sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed on the cloud, advertising the talk, because I thought, oh, this is one of the images we normally, we put for meditation. But actually, um, I'm kind of really interested to see how it works, as I said, at the business end of our life, which is, well, what is life? It's about doing things, isn't it? It's about connecting, it's about interactions, it's about relationships. Um, and I know, coming from Liverpool, and you can probably tell by my age that I did go through the Beatles era. I was quite young, but um, and so at that time in the 60s, it was that was kind of the image that sort of meditation got, wasn't it? Sort of, sitting cross-legged up the mountain, probably a bit of this, that, and the other, and hey, peace, man. And so people had a little bit idea that that's sort of what meditation involves. And nowadays, I guess the sort of flavor of the month is things like mindfulness. I was I listened to quite a lot of sports and news radio, and and there was a program recently um, where one of the commentators in the middle of things said, "Do you know what mindfulness is?" And the other commentator said, "Yes, yes, it's meditation. Being in the moment." And then there's, "Oh, right," and then they moved on. And I thought we probably wouldn't have heard meditation and mindfulness and stuff like that on the sports and news channel many years ago. So it is coming into sort of everyday parlance. But the meditation that I've been practicing with the Brahma Kumaris for many years is Raja Yoga meditation, and it has aspects which are common to all meditation, but it also has some uniqueness, I feel. And so we're going to explore that. And what I'd like to do is just I'd like to look at this concept of being in the flow. Some of you may have heard the term. Sometimes it's called sort of being in the zone, and it was coined by I think he must have been a Eastern European origin psychologist, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. I wrote it down, but if I tell you it's got 16 16 letters in orders which we don't have in English. But he was doing research into happiness, and he was looking at the factors that made people happy and this and that. And he came out with this concept of flow, and it kind of intrigued me, and we'll look at this as we go through the session. But one of the things that did intrigue me was that people were getting into this state, which was actually very similar to meditation, but they were doing that through activity. And I found that quite interesting. So we'll come back to that. But the whole thing of sort of flow, for me, it's sort of thinking about this. Life is a little bit like a river, isn't it? It kind of flows, and everything kind of everything kind of in life, I think, is to do with an exchange of energy. And if you think about it, uh, you know, what we're doing sometimes impacts us. And, we have that expression, I'm feeling absolutely drained. And so sometimes when you've done something, um, and I would say our consciousness hasn't been really in the right space, it's as if the energy within us sort of flows out. Whereas sometimes we do something which, after we've done that, we actually feel energized. Yeah, I'm sure you must have had that experience. Um, and so it feels sometimes that energy is flowing out, and sometimes it feels almost like I'm taking energy in. And when there's a flow of energy, it feels that there can be a sort of a positive side of that, a negative. So if I'm bringing in really good energy that's energizing me, that's good. But sometimes we become a bit like a vacuum cleaner, don't we? where we're sucking up all the negativity and the anger and the irritation and the anxiety that's going on around us in situations and people around us. And we kind of sometimes just absorb that. And I think, in the present climate, really, where we're with the whole COVID, and I think we're all just about, I didn't hear the news at 4 o'clock, but I suspect Leeds is certainly in lockdown, and it is quite a challenging time. And there's a lot of people, there's a lot of worry and anxiety and fear around. And so it is very easy to pick up that. And so we don't want to be, well, we certainly don't want to be doing that. And I think this idea of sort of being in the flow, for me, it's also very much connected to things like synchronicity and alignment and feeling connected. I'm sure you must have all had this experience where you're doing something and everything sort of flows, doesn't it? I don't Up north, we probably say, all the ducks line up. You must have had that experience where you're trying to do something, and for some reason, one or other thing doesn't quite sink in, and it seems to take a long time, and it doesn't work out very well, and then the other time, it just feels like everything's flowing, and there's a sort of feeling of synchronicity and alignment. And I once heard someone described as the difference between, sort of coming out of the house, coming around the corner, arriving at the bus stop just as the bus has left, or the difference between, coming out the house, coming around the corner, and just arriving at the bus stop just as the bus comes round the corner. And in the old days, with the old buses, where you could just sort of step on and off you go. And the difference between those two states is very marginal. Certainly in that case, it's just a couple of seconds. But that kind of feeling for me, sort of kind of territory where we're looking about this thing of flow. And then the other thing, the other expression, sort of quietly closely connected with this, isn't it? Is we talk about like going with the flow. And you will have all experienced that, and sometimes we can think and think and think about things, and they don't work out as we planned. And there's a very lovely, it is a very lovely experience of just being light and easy and natural, and just sort of going with the flow, and trusting that it's going to take you where you need to go. And if it's not, you feel you've got that capacity to change and adjust, and there's a sort of a sense of trust in there. So for me, the sort of question is, well, what is it that takes us into this flow state, this easiness? and what brings us out of it. So I'm just going to, let me see, I made a few notes, because I did do a session like this many years ago, and I found I had there was a lot of detail to it. So I'm just want to make sure that I just try to give you the essence, because you can Google all this stuff anyway, can't we, nowadays? But this term flow, or being in the zone, it's quite often connected to sport. And I was a keen sportsman. I played a lot of sport. I think it's true. I was a fairly active child, almost to the point of not being able to sit still. And like Margaret was saying, you know, I worked in Bradford for many years in the dental setting, mostly with young children or kids with challenging backgrounds. And so I was in a situation where I was constantly active, and trying to integrate a sort of a meditative state into that, while I was having to think on my feet quite a lot. So quite often when you explore this idea of this state of flow, it's quite often connected to sports people, top surgeons, musicians, creative people. And it's very much connected to, you know, you've probably heard the term peak performance, when we're performing at our best. We're performing in an optimal way. And I've got a little list here so I don't forget them all, because for me, they're all quite important. When this state of flow was sort of coined, and they were trying to describe it, there's certain characteristics. And as I said, the thing that I found really interested me was that quite a lot of them, there seemed to be a direct overlap with the practice of meditation. And that I found very interesting, because in meditation, generally we're sitting still. And certainly, like in a sports setting, people are really going helter leather and they're going full pelt. And yet, both actually bring us into a similar state. And I found that quite intriguing, and still do, which is why I picked the topic when I was asked to do a talk. So one of the things that they describe is a state of intense concentration and focus. And I've also heard it described as energized focus. So it's a focus which is energizing you. And people often describe it as being like feeling completely absorbed. And I'm sure, you know, you've all had that experience where you really get stuck into something and to the point where literally everything else goes out of your mind, and you lose track of the time, and you're just totally focused. And so in this flow state, they talk about this altered sense of time, you know, when they've done the research on it for people, where people sort of lose concerns about the external things that we normally worry about. They describe it as being almost like timeless. They talk about that everything slows down and almost stops. You know, you see that with great musicians, don't you? I mean, or great artists, or masters, or sports people. I'm a great football fan. And, you know, when someone's a master of their craft, it feels as if they've got all the time in the world. They don't feel rushed. Now, just give me 1 minute. I'm just realize I can't see my clock, just to keep track. Yeah, that's better. They don't feel rushed. They don't feel rushed at all, because they're kind of a master. And that's one of the characteristics. The other characteristic, people describe as being very calm, very relaxed and very peaceful, whilst at the same time being very alert. And again, that really intrigues me, particularly with the Raj Yoga meditation that we practice here. Is that, and we will talk about this a little bit afterwards, a little bit later, but we describe, certainly in Raj Yoga meditation, as it's a sort of an alert calmness. It's an alert state of relaxation. It's not a flopping state of relaxation, you know, the kind of thing you might do at the end of your yoga class where you close your eyes and flop, and that's great, but it's not so useful when you're on the go. And of course, you know, for me, and I'm sure for everyone out there, you want to be able to bring a meditative state of mind, a calmness, a relaxation, a peacefulness whilst you're doing things. And when you're doing things, you need to be alert, right? So the other thing they described as having a sense of being in control. And again, that's this sense of being mastership. And of course, that's very different from trying to control things. And I did touch in with Mike George's talk, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, wasn't he? When I think he was talking about the contrast between, was it power and force? And so this idea of flow, it's when you're in a sort of it feels like you're in a natural state. You're not trying to force things, and you're not trying to control things, but you feel in control. And then, yeah, one of the other qualities which we did a session here a couple of months ago, which I found really interesting, was this that when you're in this sort of state of flow, you're very intuitive. You know, we have within us a part of our consciousness that you know, I don't know what you'd call it really. I suppose it's like our inner wisdom. It's sort of, you know, you just know. No one tells you anything, but you just know about something. It's like an inner feeling, and you quite often see that with sportsmen. I remember listening to I think it was it baseball? No, was that American football, which is very quick. But I remember one of the top guys describing his experience where he sort of had his back to where the play was, and he sort of just turned around and threw it into some open space. And then another guy who apparently couldn't see where he was throwing it ran into that space and caught it and sort of did a touchdown, whatever they do in American football, NFL. And when they asked the guy afterwards, you know, how did you know the guy was going to run over there? Why did you throw it over there? And when they asked the other guy, how did you know the ball, you know, the ball was going to be thrown there? And they said, well, I just knew. And I find that quite interesting because it does connect to me with aspects of meditation. Let's see. Oh yes. Now the other thing which I did find very interesting is that the brainwave patterns, when people, particularly sportsmen in this case, go into this state of flow. I think it's alpha waves, but yeah, I'm not totally 100% up on my waves, but I think it's alpha waves. It's a very, very similar and identical kind of pattern to meditation. And it's also the brainwave patterns are the brainwave patterns that are connected to qualities like peace and wisdom and love and compassion. And I found that quite intriguing. So let's see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Meditative state. Yeah. So the brain waves are very similar to a meditative state. So, and the other thing which really sort of nailed this connection down for myself in terms of sort of connection with meditation and activity was when some of the psychologists sort of looking in this area, they're saying that this sort of flow state is where awareness and action meet. And I really found that quite fascinating because, you know, this is the territory what we're talking about today, sort of using meditation at the business end of your life. And certainly, you know, when we describing sort of meditation, one of the aspects is awareness, a change of awareness. So that's a little bit about flow. Now let me just, I'm gonna just, I'm trying to keep myself on track because Margaret knows me, don't you, Margaret? Usually I have so many things flowing into my mind. I just want to make sure that I keep them in order. Okay, so so that's just sort of describing this state of flow, and then it was quite interesting because when I'm sort of preparing for the talk and everything, I was thinking now I should try to be in the state of flow as I'm doing this talk so that it feels natural and I'm not just digging around for things, which is why I made a couple of notes. But the question then comes, you know, what are the things that take us out of this state of flow, and what are the things that take us into this state of flow? And again, they're quite similar to sort of things of meditation. There's a bit of a divergence in the sort of psychology field. Some folks say, well, you can't really get yourself into the zone. You just kind of, it just sort of happens, and sometimes that is definitely the case. On the other hand, other folks sort of say that yes, there are things you can do so that it's more likely that you go into this state of flow. The other thing, I'm forgetting that. The other thing which this flow is connected with is being in the moment. When these sports people describe, you know, this sort of intuitive experience, they did say that you just feel as if you're completely in the moment. Time stops still, and that's why I find again there's another crossover with meditation, because my own experience of meditation is that it does bring you into the moment, and obviously one of the other, I mean, if people ask, you know, what is the sort of definition of meditation? I mean, for me, a sort of simple sort of rule of thumb, one is awareness, but it means to think. So we're using our thoughts, and it means to heal. So we're in the territory where we're using thoughts to create a sense of healing. In other words, we're using our thoughts to make us feel healed or whole or comfortable with ourselves, as opposed to, well, certainly with a lot of our cases before we meditated, was that our thoughts would quite often be doing our heads in, and our thoughts would actually disturb us. And the other thing which really interests me, in, you know, particularly with this kind of area, is I can use my thoughts to bring myself into this, I suppose, this altered state of awareness. But then that flows out through my activity. So if I can be peaceful and calm and relaxed and quiet and kind of loving, in a sense, in the state of meditation, then that's going to flow out, and that's another aspect of flow. That's going to flow out into everything that I do, and also with, you know, in my interactions, and the reverse of that can also be true, which is why I find it quite fascinating that sometimes what I'm doing it in such a state of mind that my action kind of takes me, basically my action makes me peaceless. Got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. When you're doing one thing, you're thinking about the next thing and then the next thing. And unfortunately, that's not a good state of mind to be in, because it makes us very tense. And so in essence, a lot of the things that we experience in this state of flow or sort of being in the zone are also the things that will help us come into that state. So concentration, focus, altered state of time means like being in the moment. So, and being alert. And what takes us out of this, what's happened there? Oh, right, sorry about that. I pressed the wrong button. What takes us out of this, particularly things like fear, anxiety, self-doubt, and also, as I mentioned before, trying too hard, sort of trying to force things. Now, I don't know about you, but I think fear and anxiety are really big things, aren't they? And there's a lot of that around at the moment. Self-doubt, am I okay? Should I be here? Am I good enough? Can I do it? What will people think about me? All this kind of stuff. And those of you who do things like this know that all these things go through your mind, don't they? All these things. Oh, excuse me, there's my light just fallen over. All these things go through your mind. What if I forget what I'm going to say? What will people think? And all this, that, and the other. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is, really, isn't it? So, fear, anxiety, and self-doubt and trying too hard will take us out of this sort of flow state. And this really interests me for meditation, because I believe sort of meditation really is a natural state, because we're doing something that we're doing pretty much every moment of the day, which is thinking. And we're experts at thinking, aren't we? So we don't need to be taught how to think. We know how to think. The difference is what we think about and what we focus on, and that obviously makes it. That's what makes meditation different. What makes meditation different? And I do like this thing of sort of being natural, because thinking is just a natural state. So, if anyone says, well, I wouldn't be able to meditate, it's a bit like saying, well, I wouldn't be able to think, or can't think. And everyone can do that. It's really just challenging those thoughts and getting back to a state which is very natural. Okay, so I hope you're okay. Hope you're with me up to now. So we're just basically just talking a little bit about this flow state, and the question then comes, where am I going to put my thoughts, and also I guess, as I mentioned earlier, mindfulness is quite big at the moment, and the meditation we practice is a little bit different to mindfulness, but it has some aspects of mindfulness. I mean, my understanding, I think I probably practiced this before it was called mindfulness. I never called it mindfulness. But this idea of just sort of, you've all had this experience where you just you can just practice literally being in the moment and being aware of the being aware of the sounds around you. You can be aware of the smells. You can be aware of the blue sky and all stuff like that. But I remember when I was doing a talk some years back, so a retreat place in Oxford, during the Peace in the Park, and there was a psychologist there in the talk, and he wanted to speak to me afterwards, and I thought, oh goodness, I hope I'm not going to be in trouble here. And we had a nice chat because he was very big on mindfulness meditation, and we had a nice chat, and I kind of said to him that this idea of being mindful is really essential for meditation, focus and being aware of what's going on, being alert. But I said, for me, ordinary mindfulness doesn't explain, where my thoughts are coming from, who is creating those thoughts, and also who is it that is aware of those thoughts. And he said, gosh, and then we had, I think I stopped him in his track with those thoughts, and then he said, yes, that is interesting, I've never thought about that. And so we had a very nice conversation about the difference between sort of mindfulness and meditation we practice here, because what I've found, particularly through this meditation, is that there's something that's further back than our thoughts. And those of you who are used to doing a little bit of meditation will probably experience that. And I was just looking at my notes there. I've heard many sports people and actors in particular, they sort of describe a state where they're standing back a little bit from themselves, and they're observing themselves. It sounds a little bit sort of Monty Python-esque. Those of you who are into Monty Python, you're looking at yourself, but there's something further back that's observing yourself, and then there's something that's aware that you're observing yourself. In other words, there's a part of our consciousness that carries awareness, and that certainly in sort of Raj Yoga meditation, that is distinct from the mind in the sense that it's that awareness part of ourself, or the I, the consciousness, sometimes call it the soul, that is actually creating the thoughts. And it's the consciousness or the soul that's creating the thoughts and is also observing those thoughts. And so, when we're talking about awareness, I mean, there are different levels of awareness. Like I was saying, in mindfulness, you can be aware of your breathing, and you can be aware of what's going on around you, and the sounds and the sights and the smells, and then that's great. It brings you into the moment. But I've heard this term sort of enlightened awareness. And so sort of enlightened awareness is getting into a little bit further back than the mind, and a little bit exploring what it is or who it is that is actually aware. And also experiencing who that being is. And for me, this is where the Raj Yoga meditation that we practice here gave an extra dimension to mindfulness, because what I found, I can be mindful of those external things, and that's very, very helpful. I mean, for me, any type of meditative practice where I'm focusing down and concentrating is very useful. But here we're actually focusing down and concentrating on who I am, and certainly in Raj Yoga teachings, it's a spiritual being, as opposed to just the physical. So I'm a spiritual being acting and experiencing through the body, through the physical. And also, I'm in touch with what we tend to call our original qualities, sometimes called innate qualities, intrinsic qualities, things that, no one's ever put in and you can't take them out. They're just kind of there. You know what I mean? Like above the clouds, sky is blue. If you kind of took the blue out of sky, it wouldn't really be sky, would it? If you take the sweetness out of sugar or the sweetness out of honey, it wouldn't really be honey, because that sweetness is a kind of intrinsic, integral part of that thing. And this difference, or understanding, or being aware of the difference between what's integral to myself, what's original, what's intrinsic, what's just there, and what I've kind of picked up on the journey, for me is a really important entry point into certainly Raja Yoga meditation, into this what we could probably call this enlightened awareness. And it's a little bit like, going back to that analogy of a river that's flowing. Starts off in the mountain fresh and pure and clean and vibrant and sort of energetic. And when it winds its way down and eventually reaches the sea, quite often it's all sort of full of rubbish and silt and stuff. And probably in Liverpool, probably a few tin cans and a few shopping trolleys as well. But basically, what it is that's slowing down the river is what it's picked up on the way, essentially silt. But when you sort of ask the question, is the silt or the rubbish part of the river? Is it of the river, or is it just in the river? Of course, you can't answer because we're not in the same room, but I think probably most of you would say it's actually, it's in the river. It's not of the river. In other words, that's not how the river was at the beginning. It's just picked that up along its journey. And that's why we often use the term, it's acquired. It's not intrinsic. It's not intrinsic. Oops. Sorry, I'm just pressing the wrong buttons here. It's not intrinsic to who we are. And in the same way, or I haven't got a flip chart here, but if you could imagine over here, if I put sort of qualities like peace and love and dignity and strength and compassion, sort of down a flip chart on this side, and kind of on the other side, we put the opposite of those, sort of unkindness and cruelty and peacelessness and hatred and stuff like that. And if I asked you, where would you prefer to be? I'm pretty sure most of you would want to be on the side where those positive qualities are. And if we ask you, why is that the case? Most people say, well, it feels more natural. It makes me feel comfortable. Whereas, those negative qualities or those negative attributes, those negative attributes don't make me feel comfortable. And if we think about that, I would say that is probably because that's what we are on the inside. That's who I am. And that's why I actually think that when we get into this state of flow, whether it's through exercise or whether it's through meditation, I think all we're doing really, it feels like, is I'm returning back to my natural state of what I am. And essentially that practice of returning back into my natural state again and again is really the process of meditation, really. I'm kind of using my thoughts to take myself through the, if you like, the layers of all the acquired stuff, all the things that I've picked up along my journey, you know, all the thoughts, well, I can't do this and I can't do that, and you know, I'm a woman, or I'm this and I'm that, I'm too old, or I'm too young, and we basically quite often, don't we, we pick up and get influenced quite often in a negative way by people around us, you know. I remember once I was feeling really top, really energetic and really good, and a sort of friend of mine came up to me and said, "David, are you okay? You look terrible." I started questioning, do I? And then I thought, no, I don't. That's something going on with her, not me. Excuse me. But it's very easy to pick up on other people's comments, and then you sort of step out of your originality. So you know, that's a little bit like a bullseye, really, isn't it? A bit like a dartboard. And you've got all the things around the outside, which we tend to associate ourselves with, you know, sort of what I do, and the people around me, and my possessions, and the things that I have, and my circumstances, and my job, or my family, and there's nothing wrong with all those things, but those things are not constant and stable, are they? And particularly in today's sort of COVID situation, a lot of these things are being seriously challenged. And so if I'm putting my sense of self and stability into those things, they're going to be seriously challenged, and they're not going to be stable. Whereas if I can keep, you know, what I call in the zone, sort of in that, I suppose, the bullseye of the soul, for want of a better word, which, you know, we experience as those beautiful qualities, so sort of peace, love, wisdom, strength, compassion, love, all that kind of stuff. We would say that's essentially who we are on the inside, a spiritual being. And meditation is then using my thoughts to bring my awareness, or to be aware of who I am, spiritual being, and a being of those qualities. And then, you know, whatever I'm connected to, it's as if that kind of energy sort of comes into me. It's a bit like, you know, when you're connected to a website, it's a bit like you sort of download everything. So, you know, whatever I'm looking at, or whatever I'm hearing, I tend to sort of suck that in. And so, you know, that expression, which, you know, our energy flows wherever our attention goes. I mean, it's quite an old expression, and many of you will have heard it, but it's true. You know, whatever I'm giving my attention to, that's where my energy is going to flow to. And so if I'm giving my attention to the negative stuff, and defects, and faults, and all this stuff and the other, my energy is going to flow out. And also that negative energy is going to come into me. Whereas if I can focus my attention on my spirituality on the inside, and these qualities, and think about that and experience them, which is essentially what meditation is, then that energy is going to come into me. So I think I'm going to stop there. This is a bit of a luxury, having a little bit longer, because when we do the talks in Leeds, we do them a lot shorter, but it's been nice to be able to develop a few ideas. So I'm going to stop there and see, I don't know, Margaret, if there's been any questions that have come in, or obviously we'll do a little meditation shortly, but
as yet I haven't got any questions posted on my chat.
Okay.
But
that's good.
It would be actually No, there isn't any.
Okay.
It would be good for us to practice this
Yeah.
practice of going inside into the awareness
Yeah.
of the original qualities of the self,
Yeah.
which is the awareness and going beyond the mindfulness of just the moment
Yeah.
into a deeper aspect.
Absolutely. So let's do that now. Okay, so I'm looking a little bit down the participants list. I can see quite a lot of you do meditate, but I'm sure there's many of you maybe that are doing it for the first time. So I'm going to share out some thoughts, and then we'll just sort of take those off. I don't think I need those on now. So just sort of connecting to what I was talking about earlier, I think for me, one of the big things is to feel that meditation is a very natural process, because it's to do with thinking, which we do all the time. And so it's, it's good to have a conversation with yourself about this, because some people feel meditation is very difficult. Actually, it's very easy. It's just like most things. In order for things to become natural, we have to practice them, don't we? That's how things become natural. My example of the sportsman or the great concert pianist, it just feels as if they're doing it. It doesn't. They're not really thinking, because they've practiced it again and again, and then they're in the moment. They're in the flow. But in order to get to that, you do have to practice, and probably that's why we call it meditation practice, because we have to practice. So what I would suggest is, wherever you are, just get yourself comfortable. So you can have a little move around. And I would suggest it's good to put your feet on the ground, and if possible, just sort of uncross your legs, so that you sort of feel quite grounded, and so you're comfortable, and yet you're also alert. Because as I said earlier, certainly with this type of meditation, the Raja Yoga meditation, it does involve being relaxed but alert. So that if you're meditating and you smell burning, you're you left your chip pan on or something. It's not that you're not, you're away with the furries, that you're so kind of self-absorbed that you don't do something. Because obviously, if you smell burning, you want to stop meditating, don't you? And go do something about it. And this is where I love this thing about meditation. It's sort of coming inside and then coming outside. This is a kind of like a flow, isn't it? You're sort of going in. It's almost like a spiritual breathing. We're coming into the inside, and then when we come into action, into relationships, into conversations, then it's as if we're flowing out what's on the inside. So get yourself comfortable. You might just want to move your neck a little bit, move your shoulders, move your legs, just to, if there's any tension, and it might be a bit stiff if you've been sitting for nearly an hour, haven't we? And then what I'd like you to do is just to sort of, you can just to be aware of where you are, be aware of the room or wherever you're sitting, and just get a sense of that awareness of your surroundings, whatever that may be. there might be some noises going on. You might be able to hear the fireworks going off. I think, is it Halloween night? 31st probably is, isn't it? So I can hear some noises. So, you know, you can use any noise around you just to practice awareness. It's really important. Having a quiet place for meditation, yes, that can happen, but sometimes it doesn't happen all the time. And what we don't want to be doing is thinking, oh, I wish that noise would go away, or wish they'd turn the radio down, because basically my energy is flowing out. And meditation means I want the energy of my thoughts, and therefore the energy of my awareness, to be coming in. So if there are any noises outside, be aware of them and just use them to practice the awareness. And then in your own mind, just consciously choose that I choose now not to give my attention to the noises around me, if there are any. So that's like something that you can just repeat to yourself as we're sitting now. I choose not to give my attention now, no longer, to the things around me. So consciously create that thought in your mind. And now, again, using your mind, just bring your attention in so that you are aware of yourself, you know, sitting on the chair or the sofa or the floor, wherever you are. So you're sort of narrowing down your focus. We're narrowing down our attention. So I'm feeling aware of my body sitting on the chair. In my case, I'm just adjusting it. A little bit stiff. And again, you know, some people feel like in meditation you've got to be like a statue, and no, just be very natural. You know, if you need to move, it's fine. If you need to blow your nose, it's fine. You just come out of that state, do what you have to do, and then come back inside again. So just be aware of the body. Try and get a sense of that feeling of where you're sitting, what you're sitting on. You know, you can feel the weight of the body on the chair or the floor, the settee. You can feel your feet on the floor. And, you know, you can also be aware of your breathing. But, you know, breathing's just an incredibly automatic, natural process. So I don't really need to do anything about it. I can just maybe just focus in and just notice how, as I'm sitting quietly now, my breathing is just finding its own natural rhythm. And so just let it do that. And now, again, using our thoughts, we're just going to narrow down our attention even more. So, you know, you can be aware of your legs, you can be aware of your arms, you can be aware of your chest, you can be aware of your face and forehead, and just consciously just let those parts of your body just relax. Just sort of just let go, just be. Now, some of you may prefer to close your eyes, but as a sort of a preparation for bringing meditation into action, we like to cultivate eyes open meditation. So if some of you want to experiment with that now, I invite you to do that. If you feel more comfortable closing your eyes, that's fine, but you need to remain alert. Otherwise, you'll go into that other state, which physiologically is quite close to meditation, but it's called sleep. And meditation means sort of, if you like, flicking the light switch off from the body. So I'm sort of just away from the physical, but I'm conscious that I'm doing it, and I'm conscious, not unconscious. So I'll leave that to you. But what I'd like you to do is now try to get a sense of where you're thinking from, where your thoughts are originating from. And I find if you stay quiet, it feels as if our thoughts are originating from around the center of the forehead. It feels as if this is where I'm thinking from. Some of you will have heard the term the third eye, so the two physical eyes see everything physical, and the inner eye, or the inner eye of consciousness, the eye of the soul. And so this is the position of the third eye. And just let your awareness or your consciousness rest around the center of the forehead. And also, I'd invite you to think that thoughts are not originating in the brain, but they're originating in the consciousness, in me, in the soul. And so just try to get this sense that around the center of the forehead, there's a space, almost like a little room, if you like, where I'm aware of myself. Maybe it's a bit like my own projection room, projector room. And if I choose now, you can also like project onto the screen of your mind thoughts, or you can project onto the screen of your mind sort of images. And so what I'd like you to do is using our thoughts, just let's experiment with a couple of these qualities. So think of the word peace. So it might be peace, might be calmness, might be serenity, might be quietness, might be silence. Maybe those words have a different resonance for you, but peace, silence, quietness. And just think of that word. And for some of you, you may be able to sort of see it, visualize it on the screen of your mind. If you can't, it's absolutely fine, but some of you will be able to do that. And then what I'd like you to do is try to feel what peace feels like. What does it feel like to be completely peaceful? And sort of creating these thoughts in your mind, it is like having a conversation with yourself. There's one part of us that's speaking, thinking, and the other part is kind of listening. And why we need to have a a flow of thoughts is that the mind will think about something if we don't guide it, and so it will just go off. And if you notice your thoughts going off, then again, just gently bring them back. Just sort of say to yourself, actually, I'm meditating now, so this isn't the time to be thinking about my shopping or this or that. And so you just gently guide the thoughts back. Or if the thoughts go off, just observe what's happening and come back to this seat of awareness. And because we know that thoughts create feelings, if I create a feeling, if I create a thought of peace, then I can start to feel it. So I'd invite you again inside your own mind to get right inside and just gently create this thought. I am a being of peace and calmness and stillness. And just give yourself this precious gift of this time and this moment, just gently, it's not like repeating, it's like reminding yourself of what you are. So just repeat that to yourself a couple of times. I am a being of peace and stillness and quiet. Just repeat that inside. And just try to be aware of how it feels now, how you're feeling now, how the body feels. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling very nice. It feels as if everything has slowed down because I've given myself the opportunity to slow my thoughts down. And so just try and I don't know, maybe take that feeling of peace or that experience of peace and just sort of park it, put it to one side so you can come back to that. And then again, just, we can experiment with the other qualities that we know are natural, that feel so nice. Quality of love. Loving kindness is a very nice thing. So again, just feeling that, come back to the center of the forehead, and who I am is I'm a source of all this consciousness. I'm the source of my thoughts, my feelings, these qualities. And try and get a sense that we're very, very tiny. You can imagine like all our thoughts and feelings, and just imagine if you're bringing them all in till they come back to where they to where they originate from. Very, very small. That's why sometimes people sort of visualize the soul or the consciousness as like a tiny spark, very focused energy, focused light. So just again, if it helps, just try to see that, to feel that you're very, very tiny. in contrast to the body, which is very huge, and we're very focused. And then just, again, feel this natural state of lovingness inside ourselves. You know, just think, it's natural to love. It's natural to be kind. It's natural to be caring, because this is what I am. So again, like we did before, just in your own way, you can use your own thoughts, but just, think, in my original state, I am a being of love and kindness and care. I am a loving, kind, caring being. And again, one of the characteristic meditation is just that our thoughts are just not just focused, but they're slower than our normal thinking. So just try to naturally just think slowly, and that will help. And again, if your mind goes off, just be aware and just bring it back. And that's why I need to practice alertness. So again, just reflect on, how nice it feels knowing that intrinsically, innately, I'm a loving being. I'm a being filled with kindness and compassion and care. I don't really have to create it. It's already there. And what I'm doing now in meditation, I'm being aware of it, and I'm allowing that to flow. And this, when energy flows, particularly these beautiful positive energy flows, that in itself brings a state of healing, doesn't it? Just go back to our analogy of the river. When water becomes stagnant and doesn't flow, then it's not a healthy state. And so we don't want sort of stagnant energy within the soul. We want that energy to flow. And so reconnecting with these positive qualities and allowing this energy of my original qualities to flow is in itself a healing process. So just try to feel that. And in meditation, we're just using the mind to remind ourselves. So if you're starting to feel peaceful, feeling calm and loving, then at that point, you don't really need to create too many thoughts. You can just sort of move into the feeling. And then one of the other qualities, which is very intrinsic, is power, or we call it strength. There's a deep, 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 strong sense of strength within either soul. It's so strong that there's nothing that can come to me that I don't have the strength to deal with. Just reflect on that thought. It's a very comforting thought. So when I'm connected to what is my truth, the truth that I'm a soul, I'm a spiritual being, I'm a spiritual energy, and I'm filled with all of these beautiful qualities, that brings power back to the soul. Because when I'm in my truth, I'm naturally strong. And so just sort of play around with this idea, you know, when I'm consciously aware of being spiritual, being a soul, maybe we could call that soul consciousness, then I can just touch those qualities in a very natural way. So just try and play around with those thoughts and try to feel them. And again, it's it's nice to, and it's a very quiet, sort of subtle process. Just try to register how you're feeling now. Just try to register, you know, how you're feeling in the body and how your mind and your feelings, your emotions are. Hopefully they'll be calmer than normal. And, you know, this is, in a sense, moving into the meditation zone, or the, you know, in the flow. Why we use the term yoga connection is that I'm connecting back to my original self, my true self, my innate self. And that feels really nice. So from this sort of quiet soul awareness, we can just experiment with the second stage of the meditation, Raja Yoga meditation. So again, yoga, the connection. Raja means the highest, and so if you can imagine the soul a little bit like a battery that's become a bit discharged. And the interesting thing to me, when a battery gets discharged, all the positive and negatives go in all different directions. They're not aligned, and when when a battery is charged, it sort of, it lines up all the positive and negatives, and that, I understand, that's what makes the energy capable of flowing again. So alignment with my truth is also an important aspect of meditation. But the other aspect of this, if we if we see myself as a battery, so you know, batteries can't recharge themselves. They need to be connected to a source of power to recharge. And so we'll experiment with the second aspect of Raja Yoga meditation. You can imagine whilst I'm in this state of being where I feel a little bit away from the physical and I'm in a spiritual awareness, you can imagine if the sort of beyond myself, a little bit like a spiritual sun. If I can connect up to a source of power and a source of strength, in fact, a source of all the qualities we've been talking about, but a source or a being that has all those qualities all the time. They don't diminish. And so just try to think or visualize a little bit like sunbathing, really. You know, when you when you're sunbathing, you don't really do much, do you? You just have to come from inside and come out in the sun, and just turn yourself towards the sun, and then you just, all the energy from the sun just comes down, and it certainly, sunbathing makes the body feel really nice. So you can just imagine that there's a spiritual sun that is outside of ourself, sort of like a being of light in a region of light, and that all the energy from that being, that's a bit like an ocean, just full, is just flowing into either soul, and it's recharging me. So and that's going to give me the strength to overcome these old habits, and give me the power to start turning my thoughts and my feelings around slowly, so I can more and more be connected to my true self. So just experiment with this idea. It's very easy. Just as a being of light, like a spiritual sun, and I'm just choosing to open myself up to that energy, and just let that energy flow in. It's a bit like when you're charging your phone. You know, you can see it goes up from 10% and 12%, and it feels nice, doesn't it, when you can see your phone's getting charged. So in the same way, just get a sense of how nice it feels when the soul is getting charged from that highest source of energy, that supreme source of energy. And again, just get a sense of what it feels like, that sense of filling. It's almost like you're like breathing in, even though it's not a physical thing. You're just breathing in that energy, and just get a sense of all that energy flowing into the soul and energizing it. And what I like to do, and I suggest you might like to do, is just kind of just consciously store up everything that you're feeling now, and sort of I suppose just pack it away in the little quiet room of your mind, so that I can actually, when I want to, I can come back to this feeling. I can step back into this room of my mind whenever I want to. And so now, just in your own time, if you have got your eyes closed, just open them, sort of reconnect, and then just gradually bring your consciousness and your awareness back to the body, back to the room. It's probably good to just move your feet or rub your hands, and just consciously ground yourself again, just to bring yourself back. But also with this nice feeling that I can just go back into what I've been experiencing just with a thought, really, if you give yourself that time to do that. And then hopefully, if I can remind myself of this state, then when I start doing things in my action and my relationships, hopefully what's going to flow out of the soul is going to be a little bit different to what normally flows out. So I'll just use the expression Om Shanti, because those of you who know Brahma Kumaris, Om means I am, that which is eternal, so the soul, Shanti, peace. So it's a nice expression. Om Shanti means I am a being of peace. So I'm going to say Om Shanti.